sensitive. If you are not comfortable with asking your question aloud to the presenter, Jessica is going to put her email in the chat box for you, so you can privately email her that question, and she can get it over to our presenter to email back and forth with you about that issue. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started.
Before I introduce our main presenter, the goal of this workshop is helping small business to really be competitive to bid on US DOT funding projects. So once we're done with the workshop, feel free to reach out to us to get the follow-up assistance from our consultants. For today, our next presenter is Becky House with American Financial Solution. Becky is our consultant and also an expert and an educator that helps a lot of individuals and small business to improve their credit and be successful running their business. Without further ado, Becky House, it's your time now. Thanks.
Thank you, Lily. As Lily said, my name is Becky House, and I work for American Financial Solutions. We are a division of North Seattle Community College Foundation, and this is part of what we do. We teach financial education classes, and we work with people one-on-one on all types of personal finance topics, from budgeting to credit credit reports to buying houses, getting out of debt, really the full gamut of personal finance. And today we're going to talk about credit reports, we're going to talk about credit scores, kind of all things credit. And we will get started. I'm going to share my screen so you can see what I'm looking at. And this is our presentation. So for today, credit reports and credit scores. So in the bonding process, let me see if I can flip forward here. There we go. There is a lot that goes into it. And today, our focus is going to be on that middle section there, the bank and the credit information that is used in the bonding process. Part of that is also your personal, the personal financial status of the business owners, IRS tax forms, those kinds of things, company financial status. If you've had a company kind of up and going, the balance sheet, the income statement, any contracts that you might have on hand or that have made it to that stage of completion, the resumes of the business owners, and a business plan. So there's a lot involved in that. Today, we're really going to focus on the bank and the credit information and how that impacts the bonding process. So when we look at that process, we look primarily at personal credit, right? Our personal credit report. And if you're not familiar with what that is or how that works, it's really a record of how we have paid our bills over a lifetime since we've come of age. It could be things like credit cards, it could be student loans, mortgages, car loans, credit-based items that would show up in a report that is maintained by the three major credit bureaus, which are Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. And you'll see that and you'll hear that again today. But that's what that is. It's a record of that information, how we've paid our bills. So when we look at credit history, right, it impacts, again, a lot of things. It impacts our ability to be bonded. Our personal credit may impacts what it's going to cost for us to borrow money. So it can make it less expensive for us to borrow money or more expensive. What programs are actually offered, and other things kind of outside that bonding process. It can impact employment possibilities and insurance rates. In Washington State, we are one of the states that does allow insurance companies to look at that information in our credit report in order to partially determine what we're going to pay to have auto insurance. So it makes a difference. The role of our credit in lending, right? So what happens is that some people may not, especially as you're starting out as a business, you may not have a business credit report or a business credit score. So there might be nothing there. And that's why they're looking at that information in our personal credit report. It may have a lot more information to it, and more weight is given to that information as it shows how well we're managing the money that we have coming in and the expenses that we have going out, those credit-based items. So essentially, if we borrow money, do we make those payments back on time? And do we do that all the time, or do we have hiccups along the road? Or, you know, problems making those payments along the road. That's what they're really looking at. So in a loan application for credit, again, the lenders are going to look at a credit report, and they're going to look at credit scores. They're going to potentially contact our bank, if we're using a bank or a credit union, to learn how are we managing our checking accounts and other loans that we might have with that financial institution. Again, that could be our bank or a credit union. And they're looking for that history. Do we pay things on time? If they're looking at a bank account or a checking account, they're looking at, you know, not necessarily what is our balance, but do we ever end up in a situation where we have overdraft fees, where we have to pay back because we had to borrow because we didn't have enough money in our checking account, and maybe we purchased something that sent us into the negative on the account, so now we owe that money. So it really is kind of looking at with a fine-tooth comb over how we do manage those finances. You know, my recommendation for everyone before you apply for any type of a loan or for bonding is to take a look at your own credit reports first. So look in there and see, what does it show? There's a site that was set up for all of us by the federal government to do that for free every year. And actually right now during this COVID pandemic, everyone has access to these credit reports for free once a week. So these are the sites that you get, these are the reports that you get, from Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. So that's 3 separate credit reports, and all of those are available at annualcreditreport.com. I want to take a look here. Okay, I got it. So anyway, all of those reports are available at annualcreditreport.com right here. You can also dispute those errors if you get that credit report and you find things that are not correct in your credit report. Once you go through that process, which I do have some information for you on how to go through that process today, but once you go through that process, if the information is updated, at that point you can request new reports from all 3 of the credit bureaus and have those reports sent to anyone else who may have received them when they had the incorrect information in there. But it is really critical to be checking that information in your credit report. Even for people who don't use credit, that doesn't mean that there aren't going to be things in a credit report. And there may be things in a credit report that, again, if someone looks or damaging, you know, identity theft is a perfect example of that. So maybe, you know, you haven't taken out any credit cards, but someone else did use your information to take out credit report or credit cards, and those are showing up on your credit report. Or someone has a name that is similar to your name, and that information, that person didn't make the payments like they were supposed to on an account, and that information may show up on your credit report. And again, it's not yours, but if you don't look at that before a bonding company or bonding agency looks at that, then you can end up either denied or paying a premium cost or higher cost to get that coverage. So it is really important. And again, that the site that everybody's entitled to, a free credit report, and right now and through April, one time per week, is annualcreditreport.com. This site does not actually provide credit scores. I get that question quite often. People want to know, does it give me a free credit score? It does not. It only gives you the actual information in the report that would make up a credit score if it was attached. It does give you the opportunity to buy a credit score if you want to do that. But again, it's not something that automatically comes with a score. It's just the credit report. But again, it's very, very important. So when we look at the information in a credit report, we usually kind of break that up into 5 sections. There really are 5 sections of a credit report. First of all, who we are, and where very often people will find errors. So that's our name, our social security number, addresses that we've lived at in the past. Potentially it can have employment information listed in there as well. And again, that is how we are on record with the credit reporting agency. So that's us. That's really truly us, our name, our social. So it's important to make sure that that information is showing up how you want it to show up. If there are misspellings of your name, that's an opportunity for bad information to get mixed into your credit report. So that's definitely something you would want to go back and provide copies of your either a social security card or a driver's license or some kind of state issued ID, something that shows how your name is actually spelled, and you actually have to send that into the credit reporting agencies. That's the only area in a credit report that you cannot dispute online. You have to dispute identifying information through the mail, because they have to have that verification that this is the actual correct social security number, or this is the actual correct name that you go by. But it is an important piece to make sure it's correct, that it's accurate. Then we have the history of payments made to creditors on a credit report. So if you have accounts that you've been making payments to that are credit-based accounts, these would show up here in a credit report. So those include, like I was saying earlier, a mortgage or a car loan or a student loan or a credit card or some other kind of personal loan that was made through a financial institution. So if somebody loaned you money, that information gets reported to the credit reporting agencies, and the credit reporting agencies then take that information, put it together, and give it back out to other people who want to know how you're doing at managing your finances. So in the case of bonding, these creditors have sent that information to Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, and the bonding company is going to request your credit report from Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, look at that information, and make a determination as to whether or not they will extend you the bonding and what your cost is going to be for that. Typical things that, as long as you're making your payments on time, it's going to show positively on a credit report. So you're always consistently making your payments. Where it might cause trouble is if you have the 30 days. So in order for an account to be shown as past due, you have to be at least 30 days past due. So that means, and it goes in terms of 30 days. So if you're 30 days past due, that's 1 mark on a credit report. If you hit 60 days past due, that's 2 marks on a credit report, and so on and so forth. So 60, 30, 60, 90, 120, 180 days past due. Usually what happens at that point, if it goes 180 days past due, the account gets sent to a third-party collection agency, and that collection agency is now going to try to get you to pay that debt. So it ends up, the collection agency puts a note on the credit report that the money is now owed to them, and the original account says that it was charged off, which means you do still owe the money, but you no longer owe it to that company. The other thing that you could potentially see on a credit report may be an account that doesn't traditionally show up on a credit report. So things like cell phone bills or utility accounts, so electric or gas, old medical bills, things like that. So normally those companies don't report to the credit reporting agencies, but if we don't pay those accounts on time, they may end up in that third-party collection agency, and that collection agency can report onto the credit report that we have not paid those bills. So those would be automatically kind of a negative account, a collection account. So that's what you're looking for when you're looking at that credit report, to show that your payments are showing like they're supposed to on the credit report, that your balances are accurate, and that you recognize the companies that may be listed there as companies that you have done business with. And if they're not, those are another opportunity to dispute that information. Any questions about that? Are we going along fine? Okay. Okay, so then we have our inquiry section on a credit report. So who's looking at the credit report? Those are going to be anyone where we have applied for a loan. So it could be we applied for a credit card, or we applied for bonding, or we applied for a auto loan or something like that. Every time we do that, that shows up in the inquiry section of a credit report. Some inquiries really have no impact on us. Other inquiries may have a big impact on us. So the inquiries that really count are where we are asking for credit. So we're applying for credit. So if I ask, I go to the mall and I go to Macy's and Old Navy and J.C. Penney's and I apply for all of those credit cards, that is going to hurt my score because I have too many inquiries in a short period of time, and they're for credit cards. So every inquiry counts against me. They're all separate ones. Now, let's say that I'm looking to buy a car, right? So I go out and I go to my bank and I go to another credit union and I go to another bank to apply and see, who's going to give me the best deal. I can do all of that, and as long as I do it within technically a 14 to 45 day window, they will all count as one inquiry on a credit report rather than having multiple inquiries. They'll all show up, so you'll see all of them separately, but they'll count as one. And car loans and mortgages both work the same way. So if you're applying for a car loan or you're applying for a mortgage, you have time to shop for the best deal or the best interest rate without getting dinged. Then we have public record information. Public record on a credit report are things that have gone through the court system or potentially are government debts. So if someone owes the IRS, that would be something that shows up under the public record section. If someone has filed bankruptcy, that would also be something that shows up under the public record section. If I've been sued over debt, so I wasn't able to pay my old cell phone account, and the collection agency took me to court and sued me and they won, that could potentially show up on my credit report, although typically it does not anymore, but it could. Anything that's in the public record section is going to be more damaging to a credit report and to a score, but it is still something that can be overcome, essentially by adding more positive information, which we will talk about that. If a credit score is on a credit report, that's great, but as I was saying, like with annualcreditreport.com, the score does not come automatically with that credit report. The score and the credit report are technically two separate items. They are not automatically together. If there is something positive on your credit report, positive information can remain on a credit report indefinitely, really. Typically, if you close an account that was a positive status, that's going to stay on a credit report for up to 10 years. But again, if it's positive information, it can stay on there forever. If it's negative information, the maximum amount of time is 7 years. So 7 years from the time that the account goes past due. The account goes past due in January of 2020. It should come off of a credit report by June of 2027. 7 years is the maximum time. Bankruptcy does stay on a credit report for 10 years from the time the bankruptcy is filed. So those are the sections that make up the credit report and essentially make up the score. And we'll talk a little bit more about some other pieces of the score as we go through today, but I just kind of wanted to outline what you would see in a credit report, and of those things you see, what are making up the score that someone, where you're applying for credit or you're applying for bonding, is going to see. If we look at things that don't show up in a credit report, so normally things that we pay every month that we have to pay to live don't show up in a credit report. So our utility bills, our cell phone bills, cable or internet service are not going to show up there. Even though we pay them on time every time, they're just not a part of that credit report. Anything else that is a protected status, a protected demographic, race, color, religion, national origin, gender, is not going to show up. income does not show up on a credit report. Income is important in the bonding process. It's important in the credit reporting process, in the credit process. If you're applying for credit, a lender wants to know how much income you make, but that information does not show up on the credit report. And also marital status. So marital status can technically show up on a credit report. It might say that, you have an account that is joint with, whoever your spouse is, that is in there. So the account belongs to both of you, but they can't use that information to either approve you or deny you for a loan. So just so you know that. Okay, any questions about just the general information that's in a credit report? Are we doing good? Okay, I can't see the chat side now, so that we're going to switch gears just a little bit. I just want to give a couple examples of financial differences, right? So when we look at credit and the different costs to borrow money and to do business, basically. So when we look here, we're taking a look at an example of someone who has a loan. They're taking out a loan for $5,000, so they're borrowing $5,000. They're going to repay that loan in 5 years or 60 months. So they're going to make 60 payments. If the interest rate on that loan is 10%, you can see their monthly payment is $106 a month. They're going to pay back $1,374.11 in interest. So the total amount, when you add that $1,000 to the $5,000, the total amount they're paying back is $6,374. And that's at, like I said, a 10% interest rate. If we slide down to a 25% interest rate, we can see now our payment has gone up $40 a month, but our interest has really, it's gone substantially higher. So the amount that we're going to pay in interest is $3,805. So the total amount we're paying back on that loan, that $3,805 plus $5,000 is $8,805.40. So we have gone $2,000, $2,200 sort of higher than what we had to pay down here at 10%. So it really, really makes a difference. And this can be the difference between someone who has good credit and a credit score of 740 or higher to someone who has fair credit but has a credit score of between 640 and 680. They're looking at a much higher interest rate. It's going to cost more to borrow money and potentially to get bonded. So it's a good thing to understand kind of what they're looking at. When we look at a credit card, this is just an example of a credit card. So in this situation, somebody owes $5,000. The interest rate on that account is 18%. So if they're looking to get out of debt, which is kind of our next class, but they're looking to get out of debt, 3.5% of that $5,000 is a payment of $175. So if they make a payment of $175, and then they just make the minimum payments as they go on. So every time they make a minimum payment, it's 3.5% of whatever the actual balance is on that card at the time. So if they do that every single month, it's going to take them 13 years and 4 months to pay off that $5,000 in debt. And they're going to pay back $3,563 extra beyond that $5,000 that they borrowed on the credit card. So, when we look at this, we think about how can we reduce what we're going to have to pay out to pay back. And in this situation, this person, instead of saying, I'm going to pay the minimum monthly payment every month, they decided I'm going to pay $175 every single month to pay this off. And you can see that it drops down from $3,500 in interest to $1,500 in interest. So they saved $2,000 just in interest. And the time that they shaved off was over 10 years to pay this account off. It made a huge difference just by basically what I call setting it and forgetting it. You pay $175 every single month, even if the bill comes and says you only have to pay you know, $125, you're still sending $175 a month because that's what you figured out works with your budget. This last column is just if we bumped it another $25. So instead of 175, we sent 200. We would save a little bit more money, and we would definitely save more time. So it can make a huge difference. And the reason why I show this is that some people, when they're trying to improve their credit or they're trying to build their credit, they look at, you know, I owe this $5,000 and it's going to take me forever to pay this off. And I go, well, you know, it might take a little while, but it doesn't have to take as long as it feels right now. There are things that you can do, even if you can't send, you know, $5,000 in the mail today or $1,000 in the mail today. If you can just bump that payment a little bit, in this case, again, $25 is all they're doing extra and leaving it the same. It makes a huge, huge amount of difference and time in getting out of debt. Okay. When we look at credit scores, we're going to look at this in a minute, again, in just a minute. But the most widely used score in lending is a FICO credit score. And the range for a FICO credit score is 300 to 850. The categories that you see there on the screen, you know, do we make our payments on time? How much debt are we carrying? How long have we had credit? How long have we been using credit? What types of credit are we using? And how often are we applying for new credit? All factor in to that FICO credit score. And when we look at a lending decision, it's important to know that it's not just the score and it's not just what's in the credit report. So you know, lending decisions look at how much credit can be extended, you know, what is the interest rate of the loan going to be, how much income does this person, you know, are they coming to the table with, as well as, again, the credit report and the credit score. What is the ability to repay that debt? Okay, any questions on that so far? Okay, we are cooking through this. So when we look at the credit score, as I said, the most widely used scoring model is a FICO credit score. FICO is used in 90% of all lending. So from everything and credit decisions, it's made, like I said, 90% of all credit decisions. So there are multiple types of a FICO credit score, but there are also other types of credit scores out there. One of those is the Vantage credit score. And we're going to talk about the Vantage score today because it is something that some people see often, especially if they're using a site called Credit Karma. Credit Karma uses a Vantage score with people to show them kind of what their credit scores will be. In order to have a FICO credit score, you have to have at least one undisputed account, so one credit-based account that is listed on your credit report that's been reporting there for at least 6 months. A Vantage score can be generated by just 1 to 4 months worth of history in a credit report. So the way to understand how a credit report and a credit score together, like I said, they're two completely separate products. A credit report is always underneath a credit score, but you don't always see that credit report when you see a credit score. You may just see this is the number, but you don't know what's there. So what happens is, here's my credit report, and the credit score sits over the top of that, reads the information, and spits out a number as to how likely we are to repay our debts or to, you know, maintain good credit. The higher the score, the better, and the more likely it is that we will do that. So again, you can have multiple, just from one credit report. I can have an Experian credit report which says the same thing no matter when I pull it, but if I put a Vantage score over the top of that, that number is going to be different than if I put a FICO credit score over the top of that. So it varies, and it's really important to know the differences. Again, FICO, you have to have a credit-based account on your credit report. It has to be there for at least 6 months. For a Vantage score, only 1 to 4 months worth of history in order to generate score. So let's take a look. The models look almost identical, right? So we have a score of 850 to 300. 850 is the highest, and it is definitely, that's the best. 300 would be the lowest score that someone could get on either one of the scales. You can see that the parameters for each level are a little bit different in the Vantage score. The Vantage score goes from 750 to 850 in the excellent range. The FICO score goes from 740 to 850 in the excellent range. And it's the same thing as you move down the scale. Very poor is 300 to 579, so you have to be at 580 to move from very poor to poor. For a FICO, you only have to be at 550 to move from very poor to poor. So here's where it really matters, right? So I want to borrow money and I'm looking at my Vantage scores. I might think, well, I don't have a very good score, so I'm not going to borrow money. And it can be the reverse of that too. But if we look here, we've got, this is actually a real client that came to our office who had their credit reports and scores from Credit Karma. So they had their TransUnion credit report and their Equifax credit report. Both of those scores from the Vantage scores were in the poor range on the Vantage. So 624 and 613, both poor. When we pulled their credit reports using the FICO credit score, both of those scores were in the good range. So a pretty big difference in what they qualified for. And as I was kind of saying earlier, this can actually be the reverse too. So someone's Vantage scores may be higher than their FICO scores, and there's a reason for that we'll too. But it's very important to understand that one does not equal the other, and they can be very different. Sometimes they're very similar, but more often than not, they're very different. And remember that most lenders use the FICO credit score.
Becky, I was going to interrupt you just real quick. We did have a question that came through the chat. Someone asked, how fast can their credit score be improved?
Pretty quickly, depending on what the situation is. So, the thing that I always say, it's about adding positive information to a credit report. So the more payment histories that you have that show on time, the better, and the longer the history, the better. But let's say that today, someone has a credit card that they're using 100% of the available credit limit. So the credit limit is $1,000 and they have $1,000 charged on that credit limit. If they paid that card off tomorrow, paid it in full, and waited, maybe 30 days for that creditor to report that to the credit reporting agencies, after that point, their credit score would be higher because they paid down the debt that was on that account. So in that situation, it would be literally, 1 month, their credit score could be higher. But it depends on what it is that they're overcoming. In general, I usually tell people, if you have 6 months, you can do some work and probably move a score up. If you have a year, you can definitely get some work done and move a score up. But again, it does vary depending on what is in the actual credit report. Was that the only question?
We do have another one that just came in. It says,
Sure.
Can the increase in credit limit improve your debt ratio and score?
Yes, it can. And I'll tell you why it makes me smile, because it's one of those, again, I've been doing this for 20 years for working with people on their finances, and it's a very, very common question. It's also one of those things where it's a double-edged sword. So yes, if I have $1,000 credit limit and I owe $1,000, if I can get the creditor to increase my credit limit to $2,000, that's going to fix that ratio, right? It's going to move me from using 100% of my available credit limit to using 50% of my available credit limit. But the concern that I would have is that you still have the same amount of debt, and rather than what we want the focus to be is on paying it down, will also help improve that situation, rather than giving the opportunity to increase the debt. So what we see happen, and it's not 100% across the board, but it's very frequent, people will do just that. They'll ask for a credit limit increase, and then they'll use it. So now, you know, even though they were trying to fix the credit and improve their credit score, they ended up getting themselves deeper into debt. And now, you know, they're still in the same situation that they were trying to correct. So that's why, like I said, we really encourage people to focus on paying the debt down. And I'm not, you know, saying that people can't do it, because I'm sure people can do it, work on, you know, extending the credit and, you know, working their way out of the debt at the same time. It can also be a slippery slope. Okay.
Great, thank you. I think that's all the questions we have for right now.
Awesome, thank you. So some of the differences in the FICO and the Vantage score, one is how long it takes to establish a score, which we talked about, right? The Vantage score, 1 to 4 months. The FICO score, you need to have at least 6 months worth of history. The number of credit inquiries. So the way that the credit inquiries are us, when we're going out and we're applying for credit, those things on a FICO, for FICO credit scores, those ones you typically have a 30 to 45 day window to shop for the best interest rate for like a car or a mortgage or even a student loan, a private student loan. And so as long as you are only making those applications in that 30 to 45 day window, they'll be counted as one application. You'll still see every single one of them on the credit report, but they count as one. On credit cards on a FICO credit score are counted individually. So if I apply for 10 store cards or 10 major credit cards like Visas or MasterCards, every single time I do that, that's a ding. That's an inquiry that's going to count on a FICO credit score. On a Vantage score, they lump all credit card inquiries as well. So all credit card inquiries done within a 14-day period only count as one. And it's all of them are like that. So whether it's a car loan or a mortgage or a student loan or a credit card, as long as it's within that 14-day period, they get grouped together by the type and that 14 days. But just remember, you know, that, you know, a whole bunch of credit card shopping won't necessarily hurt a score when it comes to a Vantage score, but it will definitely hurt a FICO score, which in my, you know, professional opinion is the more important score. That's the score we are really watching. Scores, things that don't hurt us, you know, when it comes to inquiries. So if I apply for my, you know, my own credit report, if I go to annual credit report to pull my credit report, that does not count against me because I'm not extending credit to myself. If I go to any of the consumer sites, so if I go to Credit Karma or Credit Sesame, or, you know, there's a whole bunch, which you'll see in just a little bit here. But I can go to any of those sites and it's not going to count against me because, again, I'm not applying for credit from myself. If I get a pre-approval in the mail, so I get something, you know, from a Visa card that says, hey, you're pre-approved for our card, that doesn't count against me because I didn't ask them to give me that card. If I decide that I want to take their offer and I sign on the dotted line or, you know, go online to their website, to complete the real application, the full application, then it counts against me. But other than that, it's considered a promotional inquiry. So those don't count against us either. Employment inquiries don't count against us either. Trending data is where the biggest differences come from in a FICO and a Vantage score. So on a FICO credit score, if right now, if I pull my credit report today and it says that my Visa card has $1,000 credit limit and I am using $1,000 of that, my FICO score is going to definitely be hit. It's going to hurt. It's going to knock that score down. And it's looking at it right now, as of today, what does it show that my balance is? The Vantage score looks at trending data. So it looks backwards over the last 2 years to see how have I been using that card. So if traditionally I have not used 100% of my credit limit, so I've kept my balances low on that card, my Vantage score is probably going to be higher, even though right now I'm using 100%. because historically I keep that balance low. So Vantage is looking at it, the historic perspective. What have I done over the past 2 years? And FICO is looking at, you know, what is right now as of today? What does that look like? So we've touched on these briefly earlier. When we look at FICO credit score factors, the biggest chunk, do we pay our bills on time? That is the most important factor. How much we owe is the next important factor. So again, this is not just like, oh, I owe $500,000. This is really how much of my available credit limit am I using? So the more of it that I use, the lower my score is going to be. If I can keep that down at the very least under 30% of my available credit limit, that's going to put me in the best position. So if I have $1,000 credit limit, the most I want to owe on that account, it would be $300. Now that's a perfect world. You know, this is not a perfect world, and sometimes we might go over that because, you know, there's something that just a surprise and we had to take care of it. But, you know, as quickly as you can get back under that, that's going to be the biggest benefit, not only because it helps your score, but also it will help, you know, keep you from having to pay extra interest on an account. 15% is how long you've been using credit. So are you new to using credit, or do you have a long history? Remember I was saying, you know, if it's a positive account, it can stay on a credit report for up to, well, 10 years if it's closed, or indefinitely if it's still an open account. So the longer your history is, the better. And this is sometimes people get worried about closing accounts at this point in time, where they go, well, if I close this account, I've had it forever, it's, you know, really helping my score. It's not going to take it out of your score just by closing the account. What it does do, though, let's say it's a credit card that you have, and again, I'm going to go back to the, you know, I have $1,000 credit limit, and let's say I have 2 cards like that. So I have 2 cards, each one has $1,000 credit limit, but this one has no balance, and this one I owe $1,000 on it. So if I close this one with no balance, right now I'm sitting at 50%. I'm using 50% of my available credit limit. But if I close this one that has no balance, I immediately go to using 100% of my available credit limit. So before I close this account, I want to make sure I pay this down, or I'm kind of shooting myself in the foot, so to speak, because now I'm hurting my score because I'm making that 30%, you know, too high. I'm at 100% instead of 50%, which is definitely going to hurt me. So leave the card open until you get that debt paid down. 10% is applications for new credit. And again, that's where we've talked about, you know, I'm applying for a mortgage, or I'm applying for a car loan, or I'm applying for a credit card. The typical rule of thumb is 2 applications for a 12-month period of time. I said earlier that things stay on your credit report for 7 years. Applications for credit or inquiries only stay on the credit report for 24 months, so 2 years, that's it, and then they come off the credit report. And then the last part is the types of credit used. And this just is, you know, looking at how do we manage credit. So if I have only credit cards, well, those are unsecured debts. There's nothing that the creditor or anybody's going to come and take from me if I don't pay those bills the way that I'm supposed to. It's certainly going to damage my credit if I don't, but they're not going to take anything from me because they're unsecured. If I have a mortgage or a car loan and I don't make those payments, yeah, now they're going to come and they're going to, you know, foreclose on my home, so I could lose my home. They're going to repossess my car, so there goes my car. And what score is looking at is, do we have the ability to manage both of those types of debt? These percentages, honestly, these last 3 percentages they're such a small piece of a credit score that I don't do. It's not an area where I put a lot of focus. So, you know, if someone feels like they're lacking because they only have credit cards, but their credit score is in the, you know, 700s, it doesn't matter. You don't need to go out and have a secured type of, add a secured type of credit to your credit report. It's not needed. in reality is, even if your score is lower, it's probably still not needed. You can have a great score and only have one type of debt on a credit report, and that's fine. It just is. But FICO says it counts for 10% of the score. And I think for a lot of people, it's a kind of natural progression. They may start out with a card, and then at some point, you know, they buy a house. Well, now they have two different types of credit on their credit history. But even if
we did have one question that came through,
Sure.
sorry to interrupt.
No
So
worries.
someone wrote in, one of my credit card companies just lowered my credit limit. My credit score has remained the same with no additional debt added on. Is there a potential for negative impact?
The only potential impact could be that the score will drop because the amount of debt to what the credit limit, now that the credit limit's lowered, is. So if there hasn't been any kind of fallout from that at this point, that's a great thing. And hopefully there won't be. It's not uncommon right now for creditors to be doing that because of the situation. The lending restrictions have gotten tighter, and we're seeing a lot of creditors come across and reduce credit limits. So I assume it's going to happen more, but I would just watch the score just to make sure.
Thank you. That's the only one we have so far.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so we talked about inquiries that do impact score. That's these, you know, again, you're applying for a credit card. You have time to apply for a car loan or a mortgage or even potentially a private student loan without having a ding to the credit score. So that's a good thing. They get counted as one inquiry instead of as many as you take out. Things that don't affect it, we talked about this as well. Our own credit report, if we pull it ourselves, those pre-approvals, so unsolicited offers of credit, companies that we already have a relationship with. So, you know, I mean, let's say I have a Visa card and they decide to look at my credit report to see if they should reduce my limit or increase my credit limit. That doesn't count against me because I'm not asking for that. They're just doing a review of my account. Employment screening also does not count against a credit score. It will show up. It will show on your credit report, but it doesn't show up. Sometimes people have difficulty finding, excuse me, where they can get a copy of their credit report with a score. So I have this little chart that I put together. It's just real quick and easy, but as we said earlier, annualcreditreport.com is the site where everybody can get a copy of their free credit report, but it does not come with an actual score, but you can pay to get it added on. Credit Karma, you get Equifax and TransUnion, and they do have a score. It's the Vantage score. You can go back in there every day if you want to, you know, if you want to keep looking at it. It is really free, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. Credit Sesame is an Experian credit report. The score is provided, and it's a Vantage score as well. You can only get the score, so the actual report is not free. Freereport.com, it's an Experian, and it does come with a free score and a FICO 8, so this is a great opportunity to see a FICO credit score for free. Again, it's only one bureau, but you know, that's a good thing. At least to see something. NerdWallet, you can get a TransUnion with a Vantage score, and it is really free. And Bankrate is also for free, but that's also a Vantage score too. So there's a lot of different options here for getting a free credit report and potentially a free score. The only one that I have right now that does the FICO score is freecreditreport.com. There's another one, actually Discover, I think it's Discover Free Score or something like that. If you Google it, you'll find it, but they also do a free FICO score too. The thing to know about all of these, they all give the opportunity to purchase other products and other services like credit monitoring, or, you know, get this report or get this score, or, you know, here's some credit cards we think you might qualify for, or, you know, maybe you need a debt consolidation loan, or, I mean, there's all kinds of things, because with all of these sites, you are essentially giving them your personal information in order to get access to these reports. So they have that same basic information about you, about, how long you've lived at your current address, all of that you're giving to them. At that point in time, they can kind of go, well, here's what we think you might benefit from. And the reality is that if you decide to use one of the services or products that they're offering, it will benefit them for sure. Will it benefit you? Possibly, but maybe not. And it might not be the best service for you. So really, if you use these sites, go into them with your eyes wide open. Soon as you get to entering the actual credit bureau, so TransUnion, Equifax, or Experian, they're going to start trying to sell you products. So just know that, be aware of that, and ignore it if you're not interested in any of that. And if you want to look at it, but make sure you really evaluate whether it's a good product for you or not.
We did have another question that came through. The question is, if we have 1 or 2 late payments on our report, is there a way to get them taken off, or do those late payments just stay on the report?
Unless it's an error, it will stay on the credit report. So the good news is that the farther you move away from those late payments, the less of an impact it has on a credit report. And I usually use, it's a 2-year rule of thumb, because the score looks most heavily at what has gone on in the past 2 years, the past 24 months. So if you have had a late fee, and once you get outside that 24-month period, it's going to have less and less of an impact on the score. Now, if it was a mistake, then that is something, that it shouldn't be on there, then that is something that you would want to dispute with the credit reporting agencies that are showing it as late on there. Okay. Do we want to, it's 3:05, so I know we're on taking a break right now. Did we want to do that, or what do we want to do?
I think if you have some more content, I would say you're probably free to continue through. Maybe we'll do about 5 more minutes and then go ahead and we can do a quick Q&A and then take our break.
Sure, that sounds good. Okay, so let's go. So when we look at for errors on a credit report, one, it's great to contact the actual credit bureau and the creditor. So whoever the creditor is that is reporting the information that may be wrong on the credit report, you definitely contact the credit bureau, because by contacting the credit bureau, you're enacting the Fair Credit Reporting Act, which is a federal law that makes sure that you have specific rights if something's wrong on your credit report. So when you do that, the guidelines, if you have pulled your report online, you can dispute account information online. And it's actually very straightforward. That there's a box next to the creditors that you check to say, I want to dispute this. It gives you an opportunity to either freeform write a little bit of text about why you're disputing, or choose from a drop down. There's also the ability to upload documentation. So if you have a letter or you have a receipt or something that shows, what you're saying is accurate, you can upload that information to send along with the dispute. You can also call to make a dispute. So you can talk to someone or go through the push buttons to make a dispute about an account that you have a problem with online. Or you can send a letter. Now, if you send a letter, we actually have a letter that we can take a look at, but you can send the letter, and we recommend that people also send at least the portion of their credit report, print it out and circle what's wrong with it or highlight what's wrong with it, along with a little bit of a note about what is wrong with it and what you want them to do to fix that, and send that to the credit reporting agencies. The credit reporting agencies have 30 days to basically evaluate the dispute and get back to you about you. It usually does not take that long unless you do it through the mail. But what happens, the process is, so here it goes to the credit bureau, so either Equifax, Experian, or TransUnion, or all three, and they get that dispute, and they are going to send that on to the creditor that's giving them the information. So the creditor gets the information. Now that creditor has a chance to respond to the credit bureau and say, oops, yeah, that's our bad, it wasn't supposed to be that way, or nope, this is right, we're going to leave it, or it's half right, half wrong, we need to make some kind of adjustment, or maybe we need some more information. So they get back to the credit bureau, and then the credit bureau comes back to you, the person who's making the dispute, and the answer is either it's right, it's wrong, or there's some extenuating circumstances. And again, they have 30 days to do that. They can have an additional 30 days if things don't, something goes wrong and they're not able to get access to the information. But if they come back and they say that, yep, yeah, it's right, and we're going to leave it this way, you have the right to put a statement on a credit report that shows, why you disagree with the information that's being listed there. It doesn't cost you anything. Anybody who looks at the credit report will see that statement. You can also reach out to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and the Federal Trade Commission to dispute that information as well. Really what you're doing there is you're essentially sending them a complaint and saying, hey, I tried to talk to the credit bureaus, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, and they would not help me. I tried to talk to the creditor who's reporting this information, and they wouldn't help me. So now I'm coming to you, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and the Federal Trade Commission to get this resolved. And it doesn't necessarily, what usually happens is the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau will then contact credit bureaus, so Equifax, Experian, TransUnion, and or the agency, the creditor, whoever put that information on there, and say, hey, we just got this complaint from so-and-so. Can you tell us from your side what's going on? So that's the next step in there if you can't resolve that complaint. So let me see. I do have it. I am going to stop the sharing, and I'm going to start sharing a different screen. So this screen that's coming up here, that doesn't look right. Do you guys still see on your side if I cannot resolve it?
No, you'll want to go ahead and try to scroll up. Oh, are you trying to screen share both at the same time?
No, I was just trying to share. I stopped sharing the PowerPoint and was going to share the actual dispute information.
Oh, yeah, you got the document up.
Oh, good. Okay. That's weird. It's not in the right spot, but that's okay. Sorry. Anyway, so this is the information, and hopefully I sent this over to Jessica, but the information to include in the credit report, whatever that happens to be. I'm just going to scroll down to we have the names and the addresses and telephone numbers to reach everybody, along with the rights that are under the law, and then the actual letter that you would send to that credit reporting agency, or potentially to all three of the credit reporting agencies. It's just kind of an outline of what to include in that notification. And I think that's it for that part.
Okay, perfect. I'm going to go ahead and open up the floor to anybody who might have any questions. If you wanted to raise your hand, we can go ahead and call on you and you can ask your question live. If you'd prefer either Jessica or I to ask the presenter, you can go ahead and put it in the chat box. We'll give just a few minutes here to get questions in, and we'll go to work.
This is Sharon. I didn't raise my hand. I was trying to find it. Will the PowerPoint?
Go ahead.
Will the PowerPoint session be provided to us?
I believe so. I did send it to Jessica, so I'm hoping that she will send it to you.
Okay.
Yes, I believe it's supposed to be to you tomorrow via email. So the recorded session and also the PowerPoint.
Perfect.
Thank you, Sharon. Is there anyone who would like to ask a question? If you can't find the hand raised, that's just fine. You can go ahead and unmute yourself and go ahead and ask your question. All right, I'm not seeing any hands raised or anything, so I'm going to assume maybe everyone had their questions answered already. So thank you, Becky. We'll go ahead and we'll take our quick break. If everyone wants to reconvene here at after, we'll maybe shorten it. We'll do a 7-minute break instead to make sure that we can get the rest of our content in on time as well. So if everyone just wants to meet us back here in about 7 minutes.
Hi, Sharon and Linda, welcome.
Yes, I'm on. I'm just waiting for the video to get on.
Yes, Linda, we'll be starting about in 5 minutes.
Oh, 5
Thank you for
minutes?
your patience. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, if another train goes by, I'm just commuting right now, so.
Oh, I see. Okay.
It's just intro, right?
Actually, this is the credit report session. So first session
Yeah.
of our special BEP. Yes.
Yeah, but we just need to just talk a little bit about MBDA and then ask them to reach out to us, right? Pretty much.
Yes, and then
Okay.
they're on a quick 7-minute break right now, so you can hang in tight.
Yeah, hopefully not. Hopefully another. Yeah, Lily says yes. A quick announcement. Got it.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, you'll make it.
All right, everyone, let's go ahead and filter back in after break. If you are still here with us or if you have joined us again, if you want to hover over your screen, there's going to be a button in your bottom bar that says reactions. You want to go ahead and click on that and either give us a hand clap or a thumbs up to let us know you are here. After I've gotten a few of those in, we'll go ahead and get started. Again, for everyone who's just now joining us, as you filter back in, if you can hover on your screen so that your little bar pops up there at the bottom of your Zoom screen and click the reactions button and go ahead and select either the hand clap or the thumbs up to let us know you're here. Once we get a few, we will go ahead and get started. All right, I think we're going to go ahead and get started here.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. So our program and this workshop cannot happen without the generous support from our sponsors. Today, I'd like to take a brief moment to introduce two of our main sponsors. Brenda Numby from Sound Transit and Linda Womack from Minority Business Development Agency. Brenda, please take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me okay. Thank you, Jessica, for the introduction. Again, I'm Brenda Nambi, and I work for Sound Transit. I'm the technical advisor for the Office of Civil Rights, Equity, and Inclusion. And within that office, we're responsible for the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program, as well as the Small Business Program for Sound Transit. And, you know, one of the things that I wanted to share with you guys is that I recognize that we're in the middle of a lot of bad stuff happening with COVID-19 and the economic downturn this country has experienced. But there's some good news too. And from a Sound Transit perspective, we are really pleased and honored to have the ability to work with partners like the Economic Alliance of Snohomish County and with the Minority Business Development Agency to put on a class like this, because Sound Transit still continues to be very busy. We, like everyone else, has experienced significant revenue shortages with respect to our ridership. Most of what we get to operate on is based on ridership. But the good news is that we are still, believe it or not, we have one of the largest capital programs going in the United States. We still have 6 very large projects underway, with future projects that have already been funded to be able to continue, even in the middle of this economic downturn. From a construction by numbers perspective, at any given day, we still have over 2,000 construction workers working on our projects. We have 152 new light rail vehicles that are being put in. We have over 40.4 miles of light rail construction underway, $15 billion worth of active construction taking place, and that accounts for about 9 projects and dozens of critical work that we're in the process of completing. So with that, there's a huge requirement to make sure that we have the businesses and people to be able to perform all that work that is needed. So I say all that to say that the information that you're receiving from this workshop and the other workshops and webinars that you're going to be participating in around bonding is critical to having the ability to be able to work on a sound transit project. And I love the free marketing that we're receiving from Linda in the background, coming off one of our sound transit vehicles. But I'm saying all this to say that there's quite a bit of work that's still going to be that is and will be in the future taking place at Sound Transit. And I hope many, if not all of you, that have taken the time to be able to participate in this webinar has an opportunity to be able to, if you're not already working on some of those projects. We're here to assist you. Technical assistance is really important in the efforts that we're making to help small businesses. So we thank you for being here, and we appreciate the opportunity to be a co-sponsor with the Small Business Transportation Research Center, housed out of Economic Alliance of Snohomish County, as well as with Linda Womack from Minority Business Development Agency. So Linda, it sounds like maybe you may be ready to make your remarks. So I'll turn it over to you. And you're on mute. There you go.
Okay, no, they're still moving. Things are still happening. I'm just getting ready to get on this train so I can head back to So anyways, with that, again, thank you so much for this opportunity. And again, Brenda, it's always a pleasure working with you. And they are also the project owners for the Capacity Building Mentorship Program.
Linda, I think you're kind of coming in a little soft. I'm not sure. Maybe it could just be my end.
Can you hear me?
That is a little bit better. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, again, sorry, I just had a whole speech. Again, as I said, the world is moving. People are still moving around, getting on trains. Brenda, it's always a pleasure working with you. I don't know if you know this, but Sound Transit and Washington State Department of Transportation is the project owners for the Capacity Building Mentorship Program. It is still open, so if some folks here are interested that are attending the BEP program, please reach out to Lily and her team and they can get you connected. Again, we run a complimentary program with the US DOT's Economic Snohomish County Alliance, the program that you're in now, the bonding education program. Her program is run by US DOT. Our program is run by the US Department of Commerce. But we are here to support you to get your technical assistance and also any strategic consulting and supportive services that you need so that you can help build your capacity and bid on larger projects. And so with that, there's my contact information. There's my phone number. You can just call me directly or just email me and we will support you. Also, if you still need PPEs sent to your location directly, please email me and I'll get you connected to our program, the CARES Act program manager. We have funding so that you can get your PPE supplies also. So with that, I will hand it back over to Lily and the team. And thank you so much again for this opportunity. And I hope you're learning a lot. Bye.
Thank you, Linda.
I'm coming.
Linda and Brenda?
My pleasure. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lindy.
Sorry, I forgot I was muted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank goodness. Okay. So the last thing we're going to talk about today is just kind of some, housekeeping when it comes to payment history and our credit, and just kind of explore some of the options people have for adding positive information into a credit report as well. So in protecting credit, the first and foremost, as we've talked about earlier today too, paying all of the bills on time, and that includes, even the regular things that we pay for, like our rent or our utilities or cell phones and things like that. As long as those are paid on time, then that means nothing can end up going out to a third-party collection and ending up on our credit report. So that's really a big chunk of the battle, is just making sure that all of our bills are paid, on time every time, and also our credit bills are paid on time. Focusing on removing debt or paying debt down rather than just moving things around is another place that we like to target, because we talked a little bit about, well, if I increase my credit line, that's going to help my ratio, what my credit limit is to the amount of debt that I have on this credit account. But really the focus should be on reducing the overall amount of debt. And as that happens, credit will naturally improve too, as paying things off. Taking the time to dispute things that are errors, which means checking credit reports and doing it as, normally we would say about once a year, but once people get started, having every month going through and checking through one of those bureaus, go to Equifax, and then 4 months later go to Experian, and then 4 months later go to TransUnion. The thing about the credit reports, they don't always have the same information on them. So it is good if you can do a side-by-side comparison. And we definitely have that luxury right now, as the credit bureaus are allowing us to get those free credit reports at least once a week. And like I said, that's good through April of 2021. There are other sites, we took a look at that, where you can also get access to your credit report information and credit score information. So using those maybe as an in-between, but again, trying to come up with a way of consistently checking and maintaining your credit reports. What's in there and what shouldn't be there, and if something new gets added, when it got added, and you can catch that quickly if something starts to go wrong, like someone using your information for bad purposes. Avoiding companies, so I hear a lot from people who are, they sign up with someone who will help them basically, clean their credit report, or help them to get out of these debts by making settlements with those agencies. The next class that we have, we're going to talk a lot more about this, but anything that sounds too good to be true, just believe that it is too good to be true. There really isn't anything that a company can do for you in terms of cleaning up the information in your credit report that you can't do for yourself. And there are things that can actually cause damage. So, there's some real popular companies out there that do what I call, blanket disputing. So if someone has something negative in their credit report, they will write to the credit bureaus, dispute it, say, oh, this is no good, this is no good. And they essentially, what they'll try to do is bombard the credit bureaus with disputes about the information in the credit report, even though the information in the credit report is technically legitimate. It's accurate information. People just don't you know, they don't want it there because it's not positive information, which absolutely makes sense. But it can backfire on you. So what happens if people have, you know, I'll pretend that I'm the creditor. So someone puts a dispute in and says, this is not my debt. And I, as the creditor, get that dispute via the credit reporting agency. And I go, well, look at, you know, Jane Smith is disputing that she owes me this debt. So you know what I'm going to do? Well, I'm going to call Jane right now and I'm going to say, hey, Jane, you owe me this debt. And now I know you're trying to clean up your credit report. So maybe you have money available to make payments on these things because there's something you do with your credit. So now might be a great time for me to come after you and potentially sue someone over a debt. And in the time that I have done this, I have seen that happen more times than I can count. So, you know, if you do not think you owe a debt, or you do not know what this debt is, or there's something that's showing up on a credit report, absolutely, by all means, dispute that debt and say, you know, this isn't mine, I don't know what it is, and whatever, I don't know it. But if someone knows it's theirs, disputing can actually open up a world of hurt rather than doing anything helpful in getting that taken off of the credit report. It can just end up where now there's a judgment against the person, and they, you know, if their wages are getting garnished or their bank accounts being frozen to pay those things. So there is no magical cure except for, you know, making your payments on time. Sorry, that is my dog having an asthma attack. I'm so sorry. Anyway, God. Anyway, so like I said, just if it sounds too good to be true, definitely try. You know, ask for help. You can call a company like ours, and we can, you know, talk to you about what options are being explained to you, and what is that going to look at like. And the other flip side of that too, you know, if somebody tells you that they are going to help you get out of your debts and get out of your debts quickly, and for, you know, pennies on the dollar, you know, you shouldn't have to pay this, that's you know, bad information as well too. That's going to end up putting someone, one of the first things they tell you to do is stop paying your creditors, and that is not something, that's not good advice. That's not the way you want to end up doing it, and it'll end up causing more damage again to a credit report than doing anything to fix it. So, you know, kind of protecting our scores, looking at, you know, if you have, obviously, again, paying bills on time every time. If you have an account that is active, but it is past due, so maybe, you know, you have a student loan bill that you know, you're 3 months past due on. Well, that's an opportunity to bring that current and have it start adding positive information to the credit report. Student loans are actually one of the easier ones to get to a current status, at least in our line of work it is. Same thing, you know, if it's a credit card and it's past due, you know, what you can, but it's still with the credit company, you know, what can you do to catch up those payments and start making on-time, consistent payments, which will then start rebuilding credit. Keeping credit card debt, if you're using credit cards, keeping that debt below 30% of the available credit limit, as low as possible, if possible. Establishing positive sources of credit, which we'll talk about in just a second here. Getting correction letters. So if something goes wrong, right? So let's say you get a notice from your credit card company that says you didn't pay this XYZ bill, and you're going, well, yes, I did. And you work with them and you get it straightened out. Get a letter from them that says that, yeah, okay, we thought that this was incorrect, but it actually was correct and everything's fine. So you have that. So if something negative shows up on your credit report, you've got something from that creditor that says, no, that's not the way it should be. And of course, avoiding frequent credit card applications. So before we go, I want to just point out one, there is that's through the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And no, this is not, this is actually the FDIC's document. So, and it has a lot of different options here for building credit. One of those, which I skipped over or glossed over in the last slide there, was using a secured card. To use a secured card, the way that they work is literally just like a credit card. So you make a deposit to a credit card company. I thought, you know what, it wasn't sharing the right screen. You make a deposit to your financial institution. So it could be a bank, it could be a credit union, you know, whoever it is, and they issue a credit card, and that's what the credit limit is on that credit card. So if you gave them $500, they would issue you a credit card with a $500 credit limit. The thing to do is to do comparisons. So, you know, look at who are the different providers out there who have secured cards in your area, whether it could be your bank or your credit union that you're at right now. It might be a different one. But look at, you know, are they charging fees for the card? What it would be the interest rate be? And the thing about the interest rate is always remember, if you pay that account off in full before the next billing cycle, you will not have to pay any interest. So if I charge, and this is the way that I do it with my credit cards. So I use my cards because if I don't, I run the risk that my creditors will just close those accounts because I'm not doing anything with them. And it's a risk for them too if I'm not doing anything or using them in any capacity. So I put like my Netflix account, that is one of the accounts I put on my credit card. So I know how much it is every month. And then I just have my bank account set up to pay off that credit card. So the money is already set aside for that Netflix account. So I'm not going into any other debt or buying things I don't need in order to have credit, but I'm also not carrying a balance forward every month. So I don't pay interest on the account. So that's one of the tools that we like to use when people are working to establish credit or to rebuild credit and add positive information in there.
We did have a quick question that just—
Oh, sure, go ahead.
Someone wrote in, how about a company like Lexington Law? Can they try to improve credit score without paying this kind of company?
Yes, 100%. And it's a perfect example, very infamous organization. So, and you can, there is nothing that they are going to do for you that you cannot do for yourself by simply pulling a credit report and disputing, you know, legitimately inaccurate information. That's all they're going to do. Is that good?
Yes, great. Thank you.
Okay. Yep. Another option, I'm going to kind of skip by this one, but another option for kind of rebuilding, or, you know, just improving credit overall is looking at being an authorized user on someone else's account. As an authorized user, basically the person who has the credit card adds you or their, you know, whoever as their authorized user. So for instance, let's say I was trying to, you know, help my sister build her credit. So I would add her as an authorized user to my credit card. Now that credit card entry shows up on my credit report, but it also shows up now on my sister's credit report. So all of that history that I have with that credit card goes to my sister's credit report as well too, which helps build her credit and establishes her credit. Now it's important that, you know, once you get that credit established as an authorized user, that you move into having your own form of credit that's under your own, you know, personal responsibility. Because as an authorized user, so in this case, my sister, she would have no responsibility for repaying the debt. She just gets the benefit of having that card on there. And I take the risk that, you know, if she actually gets a physical card and she runs up that account, she doesn't have to pay it. I do, you know, and hopefully she would pay it because she's a nice person, but, you know, she doesn't have to because it's in my name. And I'm sharing, you know, that credit history with her. So it is a good thing. The other thing is, you know, looking for someone as a cosigner. This is my most favorite method for helping people or, you know, working with people to build credit. It is potentially an option, but as the cosigner, you are taking a huge, huge risk when you cosign for someone else. So, you know, same scenario as my sister, let's say, and she wants to establish credit and she wants to buy a car. So I co-sign on the car loan for her. So we are both responsible for making those payments. So the car loan's on my credit report, and again, it's on her credit report, so it's building her credit. But if she doesn't make those payments, yes, it's going to negatively impact. It's going to negatively impact me too, and that lender is ultimately going to come to me because I'm saying by being the co-signer, I will take on this loan all by myself if she, freaks out and she doesn't make those payments. So I don't. Not only that, but I'm also taking on that amount of debt. So if I want to go and I want to buy a car or I want to buy a house or I want to take out a loan for something, that lender is going to look at the loan that I co-signed for my sister if it's my debt too, which I mean, technically it is, but so it's going to reduce my ability to borrow for the things that I might need to borrow for or why that I might want to borrow for. So, it's a very risky situation for the co-signer for sure in order to be able to help the person establish credit. But as a person who would need the co-signer, it is a way to start building credit, if you have a good relationship with someone in that respect. We look at cards as far as store cards and gas cards too. Definitely, I'm not a huge proponent with using store cards. I don't know. I mean, it's hard because we can't just talk automatically here. But normally, I ask people why. Why would I not why would I not think store cards were a great opportunity? They do build credit, but the only place that you can use them, you can't use it like I was talking about, like for a Netflix or something like that, that you would normally buy, or a tank of gas. Like you have to buy gas to go here or there. You can only use it at that store. So, there's not a lot of normal spending that I do at a department store or, Kohl's or Macy's or, something like that. So it might not be the best, way to start building credit by having to spend or use a card somewhere else that's outside of my normal spending. The other one that is a good opportunity is making a large down purchase. So if you have the opportunity to save cash and you've saved enough cash and you're in a position where you can put a down payment into something that does two things. One, it can bring down the initial payments. Two, it can bring down the interest rate. And three, it also helps to establish credit. So that's all of those are positives. And as long as that's getting reported to the credit reporting agencies, and you can make those payments on time and you feel comfortable with that, that's a great opportunity, like I said, for establishing credit and getting on board.
We did have another question come
Oh,
through
go ahead.
real quick. Someone asked, if you and your spouse are both wanting to build credit, would you recommend adding each other as authorized user on each other's credit building credit cards? And will this benefit both as far as credit scores go?
It would, if you did add each other, yes, it would benefit. It would give a boost to the scores. And as long as, both parties are comfortable with that, and, you don't have to give the person a card. So, you could add your spouse on as an authorized user. And if the card comes, or say, I don't want a card, but if they still send a card, just take the card and get rid of it. When I'm not saying you don't trust your spouse, but just sometimes people just don't want it anyway. So, just eliminate the card, but it would add a positive record to both. If you both did it, it would add a positive record to both credit reports, which could be beneficial, definitely.
Thank you. That's all for now.
Yep. Okay. So the last one I wanted to talk about is not necessarily a hard and fast, improving credit or building credit within the normal means of credit buildings. It's using an alternative credit history, which is essentially taking the normal things that we pay every month and using those to create a credit history that shows that we pay our bills on time. So taking things like, I'm going to scroll down here because it does show you. So like your rent or, child care payments or elder care payments or child support or our cell phones, electric bills, gas bills, cable, cell phone bills, we say that already, internet, insurance. So there's all of these different things that a lot of us pay every single month, and we pay them on time, but they don't give us any credit, for our credit reports by paying them. So getting this information together, and I usually say get the last 12 to 24 months if you have it, that shows that bills and things have been paid on time every time, that you can take to whoever it is that you're dealing with, a lender or a bonding agency or whoever, and show that, look, this is what I do have to show because I don't really have any traditional credit. Or maybe I, only have one account in my traditional credit. So this is my alternative credit history. Putting that information together so that party can use that to make a decision. And they actually, right now we have people that are doing this with home loans. So it is possible, and it is definitely an opportunity. We use it a lot in the housing market. I cannot tell you how much it is used or if it is used at all in the bonding market. But it's anything is worth a try, I always say, just to show again, that this is what my payment history is, and I do pay these things on time every single time. I just have not established traditional credit yet at this point. So I think that's it. And I will make sure, I'm pretty sure that I did send this out to Jessica, but I will make sure that I did because I don't know. And the last thing here, these last things are things that we've talked about, making sure you check your credit report. If you've got errors, disputing those errors, making sure that, if you have anything that's in collections, that third party that says that you owe money in that, if it is, making sure it's yours, that you know what it is, that you understand what it is, asking for clarification if that's what's needed. Making sure that you're making your payments on time. If you have credit cards, keeping those balances low, always definitely a huge, people underestimate how the balances on credit cards impact a credit score. And let me tell you, it is huge. You can have somebody with an absolutely immaculate credit history, perfect credit, they've made every single payment on time their entire lives, but their balances are too high and they cannot get a credit score over 640 because their balances are so high. Think about the different credit building strategies that we've just kind of gone over this afternoon. Your older accounts, if you need to keep those open, avoid applying for credit. This goes back to the question someone had asked earlier, if you can increase your credit limit on revolving accounts or ask for a lower interest rate. So it can potentially increase your score. If you get that done, definitely ask for a lower interest rate. There's no doubt about that. And timing too. If you need sometimes people have trouble because of when a payment is due. So talk to the creditor about changing the payment date. Those are simple things that can really help. But just watch, increasing the credit limit, because that's one that can, if I suppose I can say if you're doing it for the, just to increase your credit score without a plan to stay out of debt, that's where it might be dangerous. So you want to have a plan for staying out of debt and not using that increased credit line. Ask for a goodwill deletion. So this goes back to what that person was asking for. If you have one or two payments that you've missed, and that's it, you could potentially ask a creditor to take those off just as a goodwill gesture, because you have been a client for X amount of years. So, I've been a client for 5 years. I've only missed in this entire time, I've only missed 2 payments ever. Is there some way that we could work so that you could delete those negative payments? I'm not, expect that the answer is going to be no. Unfortunately, there isn't a way that we can do that, but hope that the answer will be yes, we will be able to do that. It's difficult because that falls under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, and it's a federal law, which basically states that you can't falsify a record, but they do have a rule through at the federal level too, national banks too, that says that they can re-age an account once in a 12-month period or twice in a 60-month period. So I know this is a lot of information, but just know that they could potentially use that rule to come through and say, okay, we'll go ahead and make it as though you never missed a payment. And I think that's really That's it. We've really covered the rest of these. Obviously making your payments on time. Okay. Do you guys have any other questions?
All right, I don't see any hands raised, and I don't think anything has come through here in the chat box. I just want to give it a few more minutes. We'll see if anyone has any questions. Like we mentioned before, the slide deck or the presentation is going to be sent out to you. And if you do have any private questions that you'd rather not share with the whole group, if you want to send those over to Jessica, and she can send them to Becky privately and get you some answers.
Becky, I have a question.
Sure.
You mentioned about using a secure credit card earlier. I'm not sure if I understand what the meaning behind that is.
So a secured card is basically secured by your money, a deposit. So if you take, I usually say $300 to $500 to like a bank or a credit union, many of them have a product that's called a secured card. So you take $300 to $500, they deposit it into a savings account, and they issue you a credit card. And the credit card, that is what the limit is on the card. You don't actually spend the money that's in the account. It truly is a credit card. So, if you charge something on it, you have to pay it off. They're not going to take it from the money that you used as a deposit. And if they do take it from the money that you used as a deposit, then that means you didn't pay the bill. So you don't want that to happen. So my recommendation, that's what I was saying, is to use it just like a credit card. You use it to pay a bill or something that you normally pay for, and then you pay it off. And typically 12 to 18 months later, the bank or the credit union will issue you a refund, basically, of that deposit that was protecting the card. So what it does, it puts you both kind of, it gives the person an opportunity to start establishing credit or reestablishing credit. And the bank, it reduces the risk that they take because they have this deposit. So if you don't make your payments and you run up the card, they'll pay the card off with the deposit. But what you have to remember is that they're reporting that. So if someone doesn't pay it off like they're supposed to, it's going to look just like a credit card that didn't get paid on a credit report. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, and it's not a prepaid card. There's a lot of confusion about that, but it is not a prepaid card.
But it's a secure card secured by your fund that you deposited into that account.
Exactly. But you're not using that fund on the card. The card is actually credit.
Great, thank you for your question, and thanks, Becky, for that answer. Is there anyone else who would like to ask a quick question? All right, it doesn't appear we have any more questions. Go ahead and hand it back over to Lily or Jessica, and they can close us out, and you guys can go ahead and get on with your evenings.
Thank you all.
Well, thank you everyone for attending. So today we have about 11 of you join us. So that's very exciting for our first session. We will resume the session again with Becky coming back in on Thursday, same time from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. We look forward to see you soon. Thank you.